Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1596A, and today's date is June 20th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Central Bank Moves to Control the Collapse Narrative. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we talk about retail, we talk about restaurants, we talk about the entire retail industry. And what we've been watching and what we've been seeing is that the retail industry, the restaurant industry, has been contracting, not expanding. During a recovery, during a period of time where the economy is really doing well and everyone has a job, normally people go out and they spend their money, they go out to eat, they purchase goods, and we see everything expand, but we're seeing everything contract. I mean, look at Subway. They are closing a lot of their stores. Now, of course, you can't get your sandwiches online, and you're going to, wait 2-3 days before the sandwiches arrive? That doesn't make sense, doesn't fit into the entire agenda of the corporate media. The same thing with Starbucks. I mean, they're closing 150 stores, and it looks like the expansion phase of Starbucks has come to an end. Their stores are underperforming. They slashed their third quarter global store sales guidance, and they are closing 150 stores. And again, these sales are not moving from the brick and mortar to online because no one's going to wait 2 to 3 days to get their cup of coffee. So we see right now that it is hitting other areas, and this is going to continue as the economy breaks down. Even though the unemployment numbers are below 4% and are saying that everyone has a job and we're at full employment, again, you have to remember how they figure all this out. The calculations that they've been using since the 2008 great financial crisis, they've created these statistics to manipulate what was going on, to convince us that the economy was doing well. But when we look at what's really going on, we can see that things are actually falling apart. We started reporting on housing, and every single summer since I think around 2013, 2014, housing has been declining because what they did in the beginning, they pumped it up, they created these bubbles, they made the prices move up, and they hoped that people would say, hey, look, the housing market's doing a lot better, let's go purchase some homes. Now, this did work for a little while, but not everyone was involved in this. There was a lot of hedge funds, investment companies, and banks that were involved pushing this bubble up. A lot of hedge funds and investment companies purchased thousands upon thousands of homes, kept them, didn't put them back on the market, and this was to push the prices of homes up. But what we've been seeing since 2014, going into 2015, 2016, 2017, is every summer, and this is the strongest period of time during the economy for housing, we see housing declining. And each time, it looks like it's getting worse and worse. Now, we talked about permits yesterday, and today we look at the existing home sales. They slipped by 0.4% month on month, and they were revised lower in April. Now, they were expecting a 1.1% rebound. It didn't happen. Why? Well, think about what's going on here. The everyday person who is coming out of school or who's been out of school for a while, they're not making the income. Wages aren't moving the way they're supposed to be moving up. And many people are being laid off and people are taking part-time jobs. This is still going on. And what else do we have? Well, we have the bubbles being pushed up and interest rates are rising right now. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster. Isn't this what happened prior to 2008? The housing bubble was continually being pushed up. The Fed started to raise rates, and it knocked a lot of people out of the market. And those people with ARMs, the adjustable rate mortgages, well, they couldn't lock in and they just had to walk away from their homes. We're seeing the same thing happen again. And we can see as prices move up, because they're forcing the bubble up in all these different cities, and as they raise rates, guess what? Those people who were just borderline before, who were even thinking about buying a house, it's not going to happen. Now we see that the tariffs, the push to destroy the globalist system. Remember, this is what this push is for. It's a push to basically destroy the globalist trade system. Remember, the central banks have had many, many years to create and basically mold what they wanted. And what they wanted was a one world economy where they controlled everything. And they didn't have to worry about countries not using the private Western Central Bank because everyone would use it. And this is why they were going into countries having regime change. And as soon as they did this, guess what? The private Western Central Bank moved in and they took over. And basically what they were doing is they were trying to blend the entire world together so no country was above another country. Everyone was equal. And if you have everyone equal, then you can move workers from one country to another and the pay would be the same. They'd be able to control pretty much everything. And again, to do this, those countries that were way, way above, like the United States, they'd have to bring it down to the other level. And this is what they were planning. And what Trump is doing right now with the Patriots, he is pushing tariffs on China, EU, and we see the EU right now is imposing tariffs on the U.S. Now, this is all part of the plan. It's part of the plan to break up the global trade system. And remember, there's a lot of pieces to this. I mean, there's NAFTA, there was the TPP, which was completely struck down. And of course, those globalists like Mnuchin and all the rest were saying, ooh, it looks like Trump is looking at the TPP. He might sign it and might join up with it. Never happened. And we see at this time that this entire global trading system, it's being destroyed right now. And at the same time, they're going to go after the dollar because it is a central bank dollar. They're going to go after the central banks. All of this is this is all about breaking up the central banking system, breaking up the globalist system. And that's what we see playing out right now. And if you look back in time into the 70s, and we mentioned this many, many times before, the central bankers back in the 70s, their mission was to break apart the gold standard and bring us into a full central banking system where they had the power to create currency at will with no one saying a word and letting the governments borrow as much as they possibly can without checks or balances or anything like that. All that was thrown out. So back then, they were destroying the gold standard, the system that was used to control the central bankers. That was destroyed back then. The opposite is happening right now. Trump and the Patriots are destroying the central banking system, the globalist system, by destroying trade, by destroying the currency, by destroying the central bank. All of this is going to happen. Now we see China, they have cut U.S. investments by 92% in the U.S. So basically what has been happening over the many years, China has been investing in the U.S. and now they're pulling back. And what does this mean for the U.S.? Well, we're going to see a lot of things change because we're not receiving those funds into the U.S. But on top of all this, we see the Fed Powell, he's out there basically telling everyone that everything is fine. He says the U.S. economy is not on the verge of repeating the outbreak of inflation last seen in the 70s, despite the obvious parallel of tight labor markets and everything else looking pretty much the same, except we're on the opposite end of their system. Now, back in 2008, didn't we have Ben Bernanke telling us that the U.S. isn't forecasting a recession, that everything's going to be fine, everything's contained? It sounds like Powell's doing the same exact thing. And basically what he's doing right now is he's shaping the narrative for this economic collapse. He says the labor market is now as strong as it's been in 50 years. The U.S. unemployment rate fell to 3.8%, and forecasts say it may break levels not seen since the 60s. And he went on to say that unemployment was below 4% from February 1966 through 1970. During the time, inflation, as measured by the price index for personal consumption expenditures, increased from 2% in 1965, when we were on the gold standards, to 5% in the 70s and even higher. Why? Because we came off the gold standard. They were creating a lot of currency. It took a lot more currency to buy the same item. We saw inflation. But not every Fed official agrees with Powell. We see former Richmond Fed President Jeffrey Lacker says that he's seeing a lot of similarities. And basically there are parallels between this economic expansion and the mid-1960s. And they pretty much look very, very closely related. Now, Powell followed up with this and says there are no signs that the public has begun to question the Fed's commitment to low inflation, or that inflation expectations have come under upward pressure. The Fed right now is basically trying to control the narrative, saying that the economy is doing well, the inflation is under control, everything is great, and the economy is going to be doing better than ever. And of course, why are they doing this right now? Because they understand the system's completely breaking down. They realize that now is the time to start shaping the narrative. Because what they're going to do as they keep raising rates is they're going to force this system to basically break apart and fall apart and collapse. Now, we talked about the narrative, and now on the other hand, we have Trump and the Patriots, and they're going to try to control the narrative. So we have both sides now going to be fighting for this. And this is what we're going to see play out moving forward right now, where they're both going to try to control the narrative and basically control what is happening. And eventually, when the system breaks down, they're going to be pointing the finger. Now, whoever controls the narrative, whoever controls what is going on here, they will become the winner. Now, of course, I believe the Trump administration, the Patriots they're going to be using real hard facts. And they might even do an investigation into the BLS and all the others and find out that they've been manipulating numbers. Then they might go into the Fed to figure out, have they been telling us the truth? And most likely to lead up to that, they will dig up evidence. They will present certain facts about the Fed. They will show other things. And maybe they'll go into the vaults, look to see if there's really gold without minutiae. Maybe they will send a team in there and it will show that they don't have gold. I mean, there's so many different things that they can do to actually put it on the Fed. And all they need to do is show this, show the facts, and Congress at this point will have no choice but to pass the audit bill. And we know the president then would sign the audit bill. And basically, this is how the narrative can be controlled. This is how we can get rid of the central bank. And this is how we can push this forward. Now, once again, this doesn't mean the collapse is not going to happen. The collapse is coming. There's going to be a transition, and everyone needs to be prepared for this. And everyone needs to have their food, their water, their supplies, their gold, silver, cryptocurrency. You need to have medical supplies, toiletries, the whole works. You need to have this because when this system dies, yes, we're going to see inflation. Yes, credit is going to freeze up. Yes, we're going to see all of this for a period of time, and you just want to be ready for this because you don't want to be stuck out there without any of these supplies when inflation hits. Think about Venezuela. Think about Argentina. Think about all these different countries like Greece where they went on a bank holiday. These are all examples of what could happen. And when we're the reserve currency, as we are today, and it comes to an end, things are going to change rapidly. And you need to be prepared for this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.